The Bible says in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose. God took my good, the bad, and the ugly, and he transformed it into a new life with new purpose.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Walking in Purpose. This concept is geared towards engaging in meaningful conversations with the hopes of making a difference in this broken world of poverty, drugs, and community disconnect. The goal is to create pathways and eliminate barriers, and we do that through knowledge, plus education equals confidence, because we often fear what we do not understand, and knowledge is our best defense. Education leads to understanding, and understanding to alternative solutions. I am so elated today to have a guest on that I recently met, but some people that you meet right away, you know that there's something impactful about them. And I just want to say that this lady that I'm going to introduce made an indelible impact on my life in a short period of time that I've known her. The topic today is prepare. And if you can recall, I just want to put you on point about what we're talking about and the purposeful meaning behind it. And that's we're on this journey of incarcerated individuals, right, that return home and their journey after incarceration. Again, the topic is prepare. But before I get into the topic, I want to give you some background information about my guest today, and her name is Ann Kirsch. Ann Kirsch is the co-founder and director of advocacy for Prepare Reentry Program, and is the co-founder of several lasting programs during her incarceration. She worked with Second Chance for Women and University of Maryland Law to create the Still Operation EARS, which is an acronym for Empowerment and Recovery Support Program for Domestic Violence Survivors, converted the celebrated recovery program to distant learning to keep it going through the COVID-19 pandemic. And she facilitated a number of existing programs such as AVP, legal writing, and several 12-step programs. She volunteered with the D-Wing, which is a unit within the Women's Correctional Institution, the D-Ring drug program. She also tutored as a GED, and she also was involved in Gouches as a student and was a mentor and a peer recovery program. She started helping women build parole packets in 2017, an endeavor that ultimately led her to collaborate with Mary Jo Davis, Elizabeth Finney, and Jacqueline Ogg, and in the creation of Prepare. That's how it all started. When she moved her office to outside as she transitioned from prison to in the community outside of the fence in 2022, she was at work the next morning as Prepare's Director of Advocacy, and is a proponent of collaborative and restorative justice who believes all people are capable of change and that successful reentry begins at intake, regardless of the charge or sentence. She has faith that the correctional system can provide meaningful rehabilitation and reentry support to everyone through partnership with other state departments and community partners, and that this work will improve outcomes of individual communities and public safety. Her vision is a synergistic process to develop personalized recovery plans, reduce systemic barriers, and maximize utilization of existing resources. She continues to do her part to make it a reality, and I bear witness to that. I want to tell you that she reminds me of a quote that I heard that says, focus on where you're going and not what you're going through. Because when you're preparing yourself for stuff, if you get caught up in the midst of all the confusions, you can lose just lose sight of where you're supposed to be going. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to this dynamo, Ann Kirsch. Ann, take the floor.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The first thing I want to share before I get to where I am right now as Director of Advocacy for Prepare is where I came from, because what I accomplished, other people can accomplish as well. I am a survivor of sexual assault. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am in recovery from addiction. I lived in a household with my ex-husband for 13 years, where when I arrived at prison, I found it to be a liberating experience because I had more freedom behind the walls of the prison than I had behind the walls of my home. And I'll tell you all of those things because when I arrived at prison, I struggled to communicate with people because I hadn't been allowed to do it in so long. I struggled to move through the world because I was afraid of everything. I had CPTSD, and I was trying to find how to get myself back on track. And I knew I needed help. And there wasn't much help to be had. And there still isn't, but one of the important things is to build that help. I got a typewriter. I decided I was going to take advantage of whatever programming I could have. And as I got this typewriter for myself, for my personal writing, a young woman knocked on my door and she said, "Can you please help me with my parole packet?" And I said, "I don't know what a parole packet is, but you're right. I have the only typewriter on the tier and I'm going to try to help you," because this was a young woman and she had children waiting for her at home and she just wanted to be reunited with her children. And I helped her. I did the best that I could. I had limited information, but I just tried to do a good job writing. And I sent her to her hearing, and she did her best, and she got a delayed release. And she was home within a few months on home detention, reunited with her children, which for me was a huge victory. Because if you can imagine coming from that extremely boxed in situation to now being able to help liberate someone else and help them achieve their goals, it was the first thing I felt like I'd accomplished in decades that was important. And so there I was in 2017, trying to learn how to get my own life back on track with the help of some very good women at MCIW. And I started trying to find information about the Parole Commission. And what was out there was really limited. At the time, they would call you up for your hearing. And about 15 days before you check your file, they give you the statute at that time, 15 days before your parole hearing now. So you don't have any time to really prepare. And then you're expected to go to your hearing and do what you have to do and get the response that you get. And often that response was a rehear, and this is what you need to accomplish. And as I started talking to people, I started finding this out, and I wanted to do something about it. As Mr. Lane mentioned, I had met Mary Joel Davis in developing a domestic violence program, which I was interested in because of my own survival experience. She also was engaged with reentry supports like Marion House. And as I started researching what you have to do for parole and what you want to give to the Parole Commission, what those statutory factors are, she kind of gave me that advice. You have to make sure people do well on the outside as well as just get out from the inside. Because I had that narrow blinder perspective on in 2017 and 2018. I was trying to get people home, but I wasn't thinking about what home would look like. So that was where the team really came in and started supporting me in what I was doing. In 2019, I had been a couple of years working on refining my writing skills, getting an understanding of the process so that I could teach others. Elizabeth Finney came back. She had worked on that Goucher program in its early days. And she brought with her an idea that we needed to build people's self-efficacy so that they could really engage with that reentry programming. One of the things that became the core of Prepare at that point was, how do you tell your life story? How do you learn to understand what happened to you? How do you learn to process what happened to you, put it in context? And then how can I tell that to somebody else to allow them to understand my journey? And her teaching me that helped me help the women around me who were going up for parole. It also helped me to start to process my own story. I had the advantage of a few programs which I became facilitator of. I had NA, I had Celebrate Recovery, which is a religious program, which is a 12-step program, which I became facilitator of and remained until I left MCIW. Liz's idea of what a life story should be and should mean and should contain made me a better facilitator across the board and has become the core of the prepare packet, the presentation we do. When we help a client now, we are not just trying to help them put some papers together and get out the door. We're trying to help them process what's happened to them, process where they are, and really build a plan to move forward. And we're trying to find them the supports to that plan. In 2020, after we had worked through these issues, we put it in writing and we started building our materials, which you can find on our website. The link to our website will likely be attached, or you can literally type the words prepare parole in Google and will be your first search result. If you look at those materials, those are the product of what we started putting together. This is when Jackie joined us. She started working. She's one of the most diplomatic women I have ever met in my life. And she started working to really solidify the program. We started building the materials. I became a certified peer recovery specialist. At this point, I had several years clean. And I realized these materials were useful to me to give to people when they first got to the facility. So I want to engage somebody not when they're going up for parole, not 6 months or a year before they go up for parole. I want to engage somebody when they walk in the door, because whatever happened to them on the outside that made whatever landed them in prison occur happened right before they walked in the door. And they need help at the door, not at the back door when they're about to walk out into the community and face all the stress of reentry. So those materials allowed us to hand that out to people as soon as they arrived at the facility. Those materials are now stocked in every correctional library in the state of Maryland, which is one of the proudest things I've done since I came home, is to get education into everyone's hands, because education really is the core that starts any kind of change. If you want to fix a system, you have to understand that system. So as a peer, I worked with my clients. I tailored our materials based on how my clients used what we had, and I got their feedback. And we now have a full line of materials that cover a wide range of situations. I will say the COVID pandemic helped in a way because everything went to materials. So when we're producing these materials that we're putting out, everybody else is scrambling to try to get their program put into a materials type format. We're already there. So that was something that was very beneficial to our program. In 2021, in June, Second Chance for Women, which was Mary Joel's original program, merged and became Prepare. We had the official name change, and our packet format with that guidance for developing a parole packet that you can see on our website was really formalized and finished. We do it the same way every time because we want the parole commission to be able to use the information effectively. And if you have a book in your hands and it's in the same format, things are in the same place, it's easier for you to find what you need and to understand the person. One of our missions is to help every Marylander make their best case for parole. That means their best honest case. So showing what the actual situation is, but in a way that is clear and understandable and creates a path forward no matter where they are, so that even if they're not ready to walk out the door, we can tell them what those next steps are to get them to where they will be ready to walk out the door. I believe nobody should ever be left behind the walls with no hope. Nobody should ever be left behind the walls with no path, with no guidance, because that's not the purpose of a correctional system. And that doesn't benefit anybody. That's where that collaboration starts to come in. When we all work together, we can take that person who's behind the walls, no matter what condition they're in, and give them the next thing they need to create that next step towards where they need to be. Some people, it's a longer process than others, but that's why our program has become so broad. In 2022, I came home in September, and that's when we began that statewide expansion from the women's program, which was at MCIW, and started scaling to the men. Now we are able to provide correspondence support to every institution in the state of Maryland, and we have workshops at several of the larger ones. We also began our Prepare for Home and Prepare for Success program, which means that people now have reentry planning services. We're building a statewide resource map of reentry providers. So if you are a reentry provider, please let me know who you are and what you're doing and what you're looking for in clients and what you can offer people, so that I can tell everybody that comes to us that wants something in your area who you are and what you can offer them and get you their information. Because part of what we do now is make those connections when the person's on the inside. So when they walk outside, they are literally walking with purpose to their next step, which has already been set up for them and is already prepared. So they know where they're going, their goals are set, and they have a peer through our Prepare for Success program that's going to call. They're going to check up on them. And if something's not right, we're going to help them find the right service for them to make sure that they have what they need. And all of these things are the things that I needed. So walking this path, I'm building as I'm going along. The final and most important thing that we do is public education and advocacy. Earlier today, I did one of my family empowerment workshops. We do them every month on Zoom. You can register on Eventbrite right from our website, and it is to teach you about the parole system, how somebody can prepare in the fine detail that I can't talk about here, in even the statutes, even the criteria that the Parole Commission considers, teach you all of those things so you can understand the system, so you can help guide people through it. Every other person, literally 1 in 2 people in this country, has experienced the incarceration of a close loved one. So if you're walking down the street and there's 2 other people on the street, statistically, you can bet that one of those 2 other people has a loved one who's been to prison. So if you have a loved one who's been to prison or you've been to prison, you are not alone. There is help out there for you. And the first step to that is education for how we can help each other and build our community. So I really hope that everybody can join us in this mission, can learn about the process and seek to help other people and understand where I am today. I got from a position where I was barely able to communicate or work with anybody because of the trauma that I had experienced. So if I can walk this path, so can you, so can your loved one. Nobody is beyond where they can be reached or beyond where they can be helped. And I just encourage you to keep lifting each other up, building our community, and bringing people home. Thank you.
Awesome. And I'm going to tell you that I really love your conviction and your passion for what you do. I took some key takeaways from this. And when you're preparing yourself, not just for yourself, but think about others. And you mentioned in there, and I'm going to reiterate it again, if you are a mom, a sister, a grandmother, a family member of someone that you know going through this situation, we definitely will have a link in the description for you to be able to link up with Ann and connect and find out what can you do to arm yourself. Because as she said, to me, prepare is being educated, right? And the impetus to education is freedom. Because once you understand something, you can't unlearn it, and you can gain freedom out of that. So I want to thank you again, Ann, for taking time out of your schedule to share some very pertinent information that's important for a lot of people. So folks, as usual, I want to thank you for joining us here today on Walking in Purpose. And I want to say God bless you and your household. And we'll see you again next time. God bless you.
All things work together for the good of those that are called according to his purpose. All things work together for the good of those that are called according to his purpose.